Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is currently June 9th, which can be said as 0609, which then can be shortened down to 69, which is could be the 69th of the year. And what other better way to do something about that than to show off some 69 kits? Well, I pulled out a couple. I was going through a collection of 69 kits. Figured maybe do a video on all my 69 model year kits, but end up looking. I had a lot of F body kits. Pretty much grabbed the ones I could find that I have, and pretty much put those on. Do a little bit of a comparison of the various other releases throughout the years, and then along with some other special odds and ends. So, just a bit of a quick overview. You end up starting off with, you have the standard 69 Z28 Camaro RS, which this was the 1990 release, which was the first edition of the kit. So there's that. Then, of course, you have several other versions, like you had the Baldwin Motion 69 427 car. Then you had the Indy Pace car, and then a couple other resto mod versions, and then including the special Hot Rod magazine issue of the 427 Yenko Coupe, which pretty much have the alternative front end and decal stripes and different wheels and tires. So there's that, and then of course you end up going into the convertible version, which also had a few of its own variations. And then, of course, too, you end up having one of the earlier releases. Then you have the 69 Rampage Camaro by Monogram, which this one is the 1986 release. Though, of course, compared to the other three kits recently shown, this is more of like your drag spec race car. So, pretty much, yeah, so it's pretty much that, and of course, being in a slightly larger scale, it's a bit different. And then, going on to, you do end up having a MPC, which has the Camaro SS Convertible. Now, I believe, yeah, there is also the hardtop version, which came out a couple years ago, which it turns out I don't have that kit, and wasn't quite interested just buying the kit for a video. So, currently just have this one here, which this one is the 2-in-1 version with a couple different optional parts and such. And then a little bit of as a bonus, you do have the 69 Firebird, which this is the early, from what I can remember, this is the early 80s release version, which pretty much build either stock or the custom spec on here. So, it's pretty much that. And then, of course, between all these, there's gonna be some good interchangeability between parts and such. So, got that. And then I'll get this stuff here put to the side. Of course, some of you may know there was also the 1/12 scale version, which that I do in fact have, which I'll just get these out of the way. Got it right here. Now, desk isn't exactly large, so a bit difficult to get this in shot. Of course, you can see, do have the kit here. And of course, this one here's the Foose design version, which gives you pretty much the standard car and then a few other custom parts here and there, depending on what version you want to build. And then, of course, being 1/12, you pretty much get a pretty nice model for quite the size. So that's really good. So I'll pull out the bodies and a couple highlight parts of these kits and do a bit of a comparison. So I got everything here now all together. So, taking a look at a few things first, got the both Camaro convertibles here right now. Now, of course, being the same car, wouldn't exactly there to be a crazy amount of difference. But of course, being from two different companies, you'd definitely be expecting a couple differences. It's like just the of course the windshield pillar just seems to be a bit more of a thicker molding than the Revell version. Then it seems it's a little bit hard to see, but it kind of looks like the MPC version has a bit more curvature, whereas the Revell version is a bit more flat, perhaps. Both of these did end up having supports going across the body and the windshield for transportation. Of course, with one of the big differences on the MPC version, a lot of the parts like suspension, exhaust, etc., is pretty much all molded in, whereas on the Revell version, you pretty much end up having to glue everything together. So you pretty much have that, and then front valence. It seems it's got some detail, but a lot of it seems more prominent on the Revell version. And then just the overall proportions are similar, but not entirely the same. Now, of course, with the likes of the hood here, they're pretty much the same style of hood. Though the let's see here. Yeah, the MPC version is a much larger slab of plastic. So it's like have it there, then have it here, so it's just not an illusion. So the hood opening's definitely much larger. And then of course you do also have the hood pins on the Revell version. And one of the other major differences between the two is pretty much comes down to the interior itself. Let's see if I can get this open. There we go. Put that over there to the side. For the interior, you have they're pretty much your basic tubs with the rear seats molded in. You do end up just having a flat floorboard with the floor shifter engraved into the actual floor, whereas here this is more one with the optional console version. So you have that, and then door panels are molded into the side tub, whereas on here the interior panels are actually separate, which pretty much goes for both the hardtop and the ragtop version. Though with the convertible versions, you don't have the top up position, pretty much just the top down. And of course, you have just the cavity in the back, whereas here it's flat. Which, I mean, it can be supposedly that it's like this so that this piece here can be reused for various other cars. So, pretty much have that. And then, of course, with the kind of like the boot covers, you have the Revell version, which is much smaller sized, and then this more the bulky one that you pretty much get with various other kits. So let's see here if this, yeah, it's a little bit large. It's quite a bit larger than it's supposedly to be, but of course I believe that's mainly due to the fact the opening is much smaller on the Revell version. So you do end up having quite a few differences and changes between the kits. So yeah, like, put it right here. yeah, like this looks much better. But of course, can't say for certain, but I do believe that the Revell version is a more accurate depiction, perhaps, to the actual 69 Camaro Convertible. Though can't really say too much, as haven't had much experience around these cars in real life. But I'm sure there's people out there who have other good comparisons and experiences with them. Then of course with the you do end up having a few other extra odds and things with the kits. Then moving on to, you do have here the both hardtop versions, which being the yellow one being the Yenko and this one just being the Z28 package. So pretty much they're just the exact same basic car. And then looking at the convertible version, it's pretty much the same aside from the roof differences. Because like you have the rear opened up. The front styling might be a slight bit different, but then again it could be just the glare off the white not showing up as much detail. And of course with the convertible kit, actually, it's the grille it comes with is the standard RS. It's the standard RS grille, which pretty much would fit in like so. But of course, you could always just take the extra from another kit and make it the RS style convertible. Which, also with the grille here, I do have plans to actually use something like that. So it's a little bit of a teaser to something that I have going on. Let's see, put that back on. And of course, then one of the things between just a bit of comparison between the Yenko and the Z28 is pretty much just end up showing how you end up having pretty much the same chrome tree, but you end up having a couple parts changed out. Like here, you have different rims. Instead of this style, the rally wheels, you end up having these mag-styled wheels. And the bottom section here being slightly modified, having the different valve covers and the opening for the grille, which this one here would, of course, this one version, it wouldn't have that. And of course, and then you do have a couple other odds and ends of parts. Yeah, because like here, I mentioned earlier with the panels, the separate panels pretty much just molded separately, easier to detail, and then a couple other odds and ends of parts. So you pretty much have those. Should probably get this dealt with here shortly. Then of course moving on a bit, you do have the Firebird variation, which from the back half, it pretty much looks like the same car as the Camaro, which, pulling the Camaro body out, see, they're probably fairly similar dimensions. So you start to see then of course you'd start to see the obvious differences of one's the Firebird and one's just the Camaro, which there's quite a few just altercations and mods to make it work. Though you end up having your basic parts like the chassis and interior, which, let's see if I can get this pried apart. Yeah, so yeah, pretty much the interior between the two cars is pretty much the same, aside from the fact these seats have different inlay stitching. Otherwise, by the looks of it, it's mostly the same. Yeah, because even the door panels, in real life, they'd be different, I'd imagine, but just are a bit different. Then, of course, this one here's got the console molded in, whereas the basic tub for the Camaro, it has a separate molded piece. Of course, you also have the floor pins for where the seats would locate. So yeah, they're similar, but slightly bit different. Then, of course, you have the likes of the chassis, which pretty much looking at them side by side, there's pretty much no difference at all, and they're just pretty much just reused parts. Of course, just molded in different colors. Yeah, so those are pretty much all the same. And then getting on to a little bit of something different. You got the, of course, here got the monogram version of the kit, which got the Revell version. There is quite the size comparison between the 24 and 25th scale kits. So if you're someone who's picky about sizes, then they'll definitely look off comparing to each other. And then of course you do have the underside here is a little bit lesser. It's probably about equal detail, but not as much detail. As you do have like your brake cables and line work underneath, as you do with both cars. Of course, you pretty much have to build all the suspension components pretty much together. Now, being in storage in the box, the pillar here got busted, so do have that a little bit of under a temporary fix for now, just for the video. So there you go. You pretty much have those. And then of course, do you have the front end is a bit different. How it's pretty much like the whole piece pretty much molded as one that's pretty much has the grill in separately compared to the rest of the car. So you pretty much have that. And yeah. So it's a little bit of a mess right now, but that's a little bit of a look through the 24-25 scale kits. So I'll get some of this tidied up and then take a brief look at the 112 version. So got everything put away now, and time to look at the 112th Camaro. Now, of course, here it's a significantly much larger car as compared to the 125th scale counterpart, which shouldn't really come as a surprise, just to see how large of a difference the cars actually become with different scale. And doing a bit of a quick look between the two, the details on them seem to be quite similar, actually. So could be that I was thinking that maybe the tooling was fairly similar, but then thinking about this kit here, this one here is a 2011 release, but the earlier one's from 1988, and the Revell kit was from 1990, so there's quite a few year differences. So couldn't exactly be the same exact model, just in a different proportions. But a lot of the parts on it do look pretty accurate to each other. Like, for instance, we got the hood here from the 25th scale car and from the 112th. It's got the same same high, the the raised hood, then along with underhood detail with textured insulation. And then also has quite a few details like the hood or the hood click, the hood latch. So all that's looking really good. And of course, then getting to the body, of course, it's pretty much both of these really are the same. They're the same car, but yeah, they are fairly similar. That they do have the lower body panel molded in, which is a good touch, not having to try to realign everything. And then the rear panel is a separate piece, just like on the 25th scale kit. So there's quite a lot to it. And then taking them apart, there is a locating tab just under here for the interior to go in, which is also the same for the 25th scale version, as can be seen here. Pretty much just clips in and stays in place. And then when you get around to looking at the interior itself, does have quite a few features, like separate molded door panels, though the rear seats are still molded in. Then some textured flooring and foot pedal carpet, or pretty much like a floor mat, which this one here does have. But of course, the pedals are molded in, and pretty much not nearly as much to it, as this one also has the rear seats removed. And of course, you do have where there's a larger opening for the firewall. So there's quite a bit going on between the two scales. Pardon me. So pretty much that. And then of course, when you get to the lights of the engine, which have only got the bag partially open, some of the stuff partially open, but you have the lights of the engine here, which I'd be guessing is the standard 302, which does have some good detail to it. And looking here, it might be hard to tell, but there is some raised lettering saying General Motors Corporation stamped on the side of the transmission. And then you take the likes of the regular engine, just becomes very different, pretty much a completely different subject matter. It's pretty much quite the difference. But if anything, with the amount of parts, it's nothing really much more than your regular 25th scale kit, minus a few extra things here and there. So it's fair. So it's more the intimidation factor, more of just there's so much to do with painting and detailing, but overall just building it, I imagine it's fairly simple and not too complicated. Then you do have the likes of a couple other things like glass pieces being much larger to deal with, and then being left with a bunch of extra parts, as this one here does have the extra parts like the 90s style aftermarket wheels with the rally styled rims with the hubcaps. So pretty much your very basic stuff you get with pretty much your average kit, just in a huge hugely different scale. Then, of course, have the likes of the tires, which are pretty much like just mini donuts. And then you have pretty much your standard small tires, which this is one I have on the side here briefly. It's quite the difference. So don't really have a crazy use for it if you end up having a bunch of extra parts, unless say you do have a bunch more of the 12 scale kits. So there's that. So it's a little bit of a brief look at various 1969 F-body Camaro and Firebird kits I have in my collection. So it's a little bit of a comparison video of a bunch of stuff, more of a case of just showing off what I've got. So with that being said, I believe that'll be it for this video. And until next time, see ya.